Good day. I'm Chris Palmer with Gratitude Space Radio, and I've got my friend Josh Koerpel on the line here, and this is a birthday gratitude episode. So welcome, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, Chris? Great to be here. Thank you very much, and welcome to one and all to the boat, to Albatross.
Yes, the Albatross. And what state are you in?
I'm in New York at the moment.
Okay, yeah. Wow. Has the boat been up there the last couple of years or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The boat's been here, and I actually took the boat out of the water and put it on the hard, as they say, and it was propped up, kind of safe and sound, tucked away in the back corner of this marina. And that's when I was doing all the traveling on the motorcycle with the intention of coming back and putting it back in the water and sailing it somewhere. That time has come. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm preparing for a trip south to Key West.
Wonderful, man. And I think the last time we talked and you were on the Gratitude Bomb, you were in Key West, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was there for all of COVID, actually, like the whole lockdown scenario.
That's wild. Yeah, I remember seeing you there. Your backdrop, and I could hear your chickens. Right? That's right.
Yeah,
Am I remember correctly?
Yeah, there's chickens and roosters everywhere. One of them in particular, named Elvis, everybody loved, and he became like a part of the family. And I did a podcast, and he was on there all the time and stuff. You could hear him in the background. It was quite the experience. So I'm headed back there, but with the boat this time.
That's amazing, man. What are you by yourself? And how long does a trip like that take?
No, I'm hoping to do the trip with a couple of friends, and I would imagine, I don't know. It's so tough to tell because you just never know weather-wise what's going to happen. So we're doing it at the end of October, and I would imagine if all goes well, maybe like 2.5 weeks, something like that, just working our way down slow. But we'll be going offshore. So for those of you that like know a little about going down the east coast of the United States, you can do it one of two ways. You can kind of go inland through the intercoastal waterway and like motor the whole way, or you can just go offshore, and offshore is what we're doing with Albatross. So yeah,
that's where the adventure is, right? That's the extra adventure is going offshore.
That's the extra adventure. Yeah, and it's interesting too because you have to you have more flexibility, but at the same time you have to avoid the Gulf Stream because the Gulf Stream's just pushing all this water north, and that would stop you from moving south. So you have to kind of work your way either out of the Gulf Stream or like really close to shore. It's going to be an adventure, man. I've been working like crazy trying to get projects and stuff done to prepare. So yeah.
That sounds beautiful, man. I'm going out and traveling. I just think traveling is like such an easy gateway to be in the present moment and to like find gratitude, I think, because it's just, your every day is different. Everything's new. You become more present, right? You create more memories. Cause I was like, it's like gratitude is all in remembering, right? So it's like when we're present, when you're traveling, you're doing this, like, you know what I mean? Like you have amazing, it's an adventure. When you're on an adventure, you remember everything.
Yeah. Well, and what's so crazy is that when you come back from the adventure and you reminisce on all of the things that you've done, the things that you remember the most, yeah, there are some beautiful moments, but I think the things that you end up being most proud of are the times that you had stuff go wrong, things broke down, stuff happened to you unexpectedly, you wanted to quit, right? You said, screw this, why the hell did I even decide to do this trip? And then you got yourself through it. And there's a massive amount of confidence that happens at the end of something like that, that you can bring to the next adventure. So it's a cool kind of self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing.
It's beautiful, man. Well, this is your birthday's coming up, and you were nice enough to sketch out a little time today. And, I'd like to say first, I like to think of, when you meet people and you have moments, I feel like this is a grateful moment to get in a conversation with you. We don't know each other very well. Your birthday's coming up. You were game to come on here. I always like to talk about like the I call it like pre-gratitude moments. Like what, how did I meet this individual? Who were the people or the mechanisms, that's brought us into each other's lives? Because I feel like most when you're sitting in a place of gratitude, there's so much that it's built on, you know what I mean? So, I know on my end, it's kind of a short, it's kind of a short straw where we have, Michael Roderick started the Gate community. And if I hadn't gone to a, Christian, if I'm just going to go back a couple layers, right? Because obviously, this is going forever. But mine's like, it's Michael Roderick, the Gate community, and then it's backing up to, Chris Schember's doing his 747 Club, and then I could back up and say Cal Fussman had Chris on his podcast, and that's the only reason I even reached out to Chris to meet Chris, who eventually I met Michael, and then here we are. So a lot of grateful moments to be here. But how did you, if you backed up a couple steps, how would we have met?
Yeah, no, I feel like definitely the Gate community, and that was introduced to me by a friend of mine, Brooke Emery, and also Jen Lederer, and then from there I met Brooke, and Brooke and I have been friends for a number of years, and she actually some of the software that I created, she had some really early parts in that, as far as like shaping it and brainstorming some ideas on how it could go, and actually testing some of it out live in the wild kind of thing. So I'm super grateful for that. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you look back in retrospect, like how all of the things ended up falling into place that seemed like random coincidences at the time, Right.
Yeah. It's, back to you're saying, looking back on the moments and being in the struggle, right? So it's like there's a lot of turns in our lives that we wouldn't choose, but they lead us to the pathways, these people and places where here we are. And that's the crazy thing about looking back and going, well, I wouldn't change a damn thing because here I am, right? And I'm grateful to be where I am, regardless of I like the analogy is like you go on a trip and the car runs out, the car just breaks down, right? So it's like you have options. That wasn't the plan, but now you have options, right? You can sit in the car forever. You can go get lunch. You can find a repairman. You can change your trip. Leave the. You know what I mean? Like there's so much that happens when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like when you stop to think about it, and being on a boat and sailing where you can see the horizon and stuff is a great place to think about just important parts of life, kind of detach from everything and get back to a true foundation, some serious roots, and just kind of contemplate and be grateful of some of the things that kind of got you there. But when you do look back in that respect, you start to realize that all of those points that you're talking about, there's an infinite number of variables that could have happened. I mean, you could have just made one small decision that could have affected the complete outcome of your day. And when you look back and you say, hey man, I wouldn't change a thing. I do the same thing, but I also realize that even if I did want to change something, most likely it would have never gone the way that I anticipated that it would have gone. I mean, there's nothing that you can control, essentially. All you can do is just make the best decisions that you possibly can with what you've got in the moment, and find joy in that.
Right. And I find that when life slows down, when we can slow things down, we make those decisions. We feel better about the decisions we make, and we have we are more present to seeing what else is happening. Right. Actually being aware of, I part of my gratitude practice in the morning is I say, I'm open to all the gifts the universe wants to give me, because I continually just want to look at things as gifts. You know what I mean? Opposed to, instead of saying, oh, today, if the gift is money, right? Like I need to be looking, if I said money and I didn't get money, then I didn't get anything. But if I get to have time and a conversation with somebody, a new friend, or talk about gratitude, like I totally find this as a gift, and think about on top of that, to have the time to do it, right? Have the time to do it. We have the technology to do it. You know what I mean? We have the space to do it. Like there's so much in that moment,
Well, and I always wondered whether or not that made someone complacent, because I understand, I totally get what you're saying as far as just being open to all of these gifts and just receiving those, internalizing them. But I always wondered if that also kind of made people not want to set goals because they, just like you said, like if you place something down, like I want money today, that's my gift, and you don't get it, then you're disappointed. Sometimes personally, I think that disappointment is good because it kind of forces you to work harder to something or change something in a way that maybe will be an improvement on what you've been doing in the past. But I also see, just like you said, the incredible value in simply receiving and appreciating what you have in the present moment. I think that there's a balance there, and I'm always trying to ride that edge, you know?
Right. No, I agree with you. And I think about very similar things I think it's very important, obviously, to set goals. I just think that the goal, to me, I think goals should be things within your control. So like, for example, when I wrote a book this last year, the goal, if I would have been, the goal is it has to sell 1 million copies, that's not a good, I don't think that's a good goal to have, because that means that my whole outcome depends on 1 million. You know what I mean? It depends on people buying a book, like a big number of people buying a book. But to me, like, the goal should be the book existing. And if you, for example, if you're wanting a job somewhere, the goal should be getting the interview, because you can't control, you know what I mean? Like, you just have to be the person to get the interview, and then who knows what's going to happen. But that, getting in the room, to me, like, that's the goal. You should just be grateful. Hey, this is my goal. I get to talk with this person. I don't know if they're having a bad day when I show up. I don't know who else they're interviewing, but I'm just grateful to be here, because this is what I could, that, to me, like, I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong, money, I don't think money's a bad goal. I think that a dollar amount, I don't know, I guess it's depends how I don't know.
Yeah.
With me, it's more about what can I control?
You're right.
What's within my means? I guess if you already have money coming in for something, you could then go, okay, I'm going to do 10 packages. You know what I mean? Maybe that would wait. You know what I mean? Like, that point, it's like, okay, we're doing this work.
Well, I feel like if you ascribe to the idea that money follows value, I mean, you just if providing value for people, which I do, like I ascribe to that, then just like you said, I mean, a goal that you can control would be maybe like, I'm going to lay it all out, leave it all on the table today. I am going to do my best no matter what, to my maximum ability. And then from there, like, all kinds of great things follow that. So I agree. I think that having something, a goal where it's dependent on variables that you don't have any control over, nor will you ever,
right?
Then it just kind of does set you up for a little bit of disappointment. Maybe you need to shift and set yourself some better goals,
Yeah, I mean, I just, in my own life, it's like, I think it was 6 years ago I started a podcast, and I did 4 of them, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Like, they were great experiences, right? But then I put it out into the ether, and it was, no one listened to it, and my whole metric was, people have to listen to this.
Yeah.
And that's not a good metric, because it goes back to what we're saying. Like, it depends. Like, I'm not going to have the experience. I'm voiding the experience out because say it doesn't get 100 clicks, right? Like, that's not you know what I mean? Where at the end of the day, like, what I realized when I went back around last year and I started, I was like, I'm just going to do 12 of them, right? I'm going to see what happens, because the magic happens after you get started, right? Because you don't know what, you know what I mean? Like, so the amazing thing, after I did 12 of them so quick, I was like, I realized that the conversation's the cake and the icing's sharing it, but I just want to have more cake. Like, I just want to, you know what I mean? The real value to me, like in a podcast, is like, I get to talk with cool people and have cool conversations. It's great that we're recording it, but that's not where the value to me, honestly, is having the conversation.
Yeah. And
I know you know that, because your show.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the exact same way. Like, my goal with all of that wasn't necessarily to have a Joe Rogan sized, group of people all watching it and stuff. It was essentially to learn something myself.
Right.
Like, I wanted to learn something from every conversation. I'm hoping that I could teach something as well to the guest, or we could dabble in that. But really, it was to make the guest feel as comfortable as possible, because once you do that and they're excited about being on, man, then that's when you really start to talk about some cool some cool, very interesting, very like guttural topics that never get reached in other podcasts. And I dig that a lot. And actually bringing it back to some sailing, just like you said, I mean, I feel like the weather, the whole idea of sailing and being subject to the weather, that's a really great analogy for all of this. It's like you can't set a goal where it needs to be sunny tomorrow. It like needs to be sunny and it needs to have some pretty good wind so that we can sail. You just can't do that, of course. And so you just learn to adapt and do your best no matter what the weather conditions are. And I always thought that was a really good analogy for the way that I wanted the show and the way that I just kind of wanted to navigate through life in general,
It's a beautiful analogy. Yeah, it's just the flexibility. I find like I just want to always be curious and excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I think like life is like, it's these moments and connections. And it's like, if you place, like back when we were talking about, if you place like, oh, this job interview is going to make my life, right? This is going to change everything. This is the end all be all. And it doesn't happen. Like you're distraught. But if you show up and you're curious and excited, because a conversation and meeting people, you never know where it goes. And we all know that connections, you just, like we said, down the line, how did we get here? Who did we know? Those little connections, they can go anywhere. And I think just being excited and curious, like you show up in a day, you don't know if it's going to be sunny or not, but just kind of being exciting because you're on a journey and curious to see what happens because you're flexible.
Yeah. Yeah. And try not to think about the fact that you can die. Right.
Yeah. You probably want to push death out of the way. But I'm sure you've done a lot of prep work.
Yeah, it never feels like enough, but that's ubiquitous across all beginnings of great journeys. You just you do the best that you can to prep. You never feel ready, 100% ready, and you just go anyway. So that's that's the MO.
Speaking of your podcast, could you share a couple moments, maybe some grateful moments or some insights that kind of had a big impact in your life? So these, a couple names, a couple small things.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that at the very beginning, just like you said, like the most difficult part is to just get started and start to get momentum and stuff. I had a number of guests on very early on that were incredibly supportive to me. And I know that if I start naming names, I'm going to forget a ton of people. But I mean, my very first episode was a fantastic woman named Jane Hogan, and I I had this idea of what the show was going to be like in my mind, but once that light comes on and you start recording and I, by the way, like for some context, I was doing 6 interviews live on StreamYard like this on Facebook every week. So like 6, and then I took Sundays off. And so I had this idea of what it was going to be like, but man, I was so horrible at interviewing. It was awkward. I wasn't asking good questions. And you only kind of realize that after you do a bunch of interviews, and the people that I had on were incredibly supportive of the whole thing. They were very adaptable. They didn't really call me out so much, which maybe they should have been like, dude, ask better questions, Josh. Come on. Like, let's get, this is ridiculous. But it was through those early guests, I'm incredibly grateful for them, because it's from that I learned, man, that I really need to dive deep. If I want to do this, I want to do it right. And I really do need to improve myself. So that was, those early guests I'm incredibly grateful for. One moment actually that I thought was pretty amazing was there's a famous singer over in the UK, and Wayne Ellington, and it was at the very beginning of season 2, and he came on the show. And this guy is a very special singer. Actually, he was the one that was chosen to sing at Prince Harry's wedding over in the UK. So he's really well known over there. And at the end of the show, just on a whim, asked if he could maybe sing something for us. And he sang this incredible song for like 3 minutes. just him, a cappella, no music, nothing. Like he just sang and it was spot on. And I remember, God, I remember like being so impressed and grateful that like here I am, Josh from Key West with a rooster in the background, and getting to witness this pretty amazing feat. Like those little moments I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, I that's beautiful, man. Like I've had a couple people play, and it's obviously they haven't been as famous as him. They didn't, do weddings like that. But I mean, just the intimacy of somebody actually, he was performing for you.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, you're in Key West. You got a rooster over here. Like, what a picture, right? If you were telling somebody, I mean, the imagery is amazing. I'll have to check that out. That's absolutely beautiful, man. Yeah, it's those moments too. Like, like when another reason I do these is like, I find that I have more things to be grateful for after I'm done having the conversation, and like back, you said, you learn something, you have an experience you'll never forget, because you put yourself out there and because you created a platform for people to come on, and it's an amazing thing. So I know we're running short on time here, but, do you have any thoughts? It's been a year since your last birthday. Do you have some wisdom you'd like to pass on, or any any things this last year that just kind of like, just sparked some memories or appreciation, or just something you'd like to share?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot happened over this past year. I had some opportunities to hang with some really amazing individuals. Was dating for a while, someone really incredible over in LA, and just like just had was able to experience a lot of great things. I spent some time over in California. Um, Ended up making the decision to bring the boat down here, which was a pretty massive decision. I mean, honestly, it was between selling the boat and just taking the money and going and doing the motorcycle trip and traveling around, or really, really investing more in it, getting it ready and doing this trip and keeping it for the long haul, which I chose the latter. Had a lot of really great family moments. I mean, I'm incredibly appreciative of my entire family, extended family, of course, included, but, my mom, Tara, my dad, Craig, my sister, and her husband got married almost a year ago, in October, and their wedding was incredible. So Sterling and Matt Dumovich, they're just amazing people. I'm so proud to be associated with them, and I don't like the whole obvious, like the whole show, the whole Fire Builders Live like show. I'm incredibly grateful for every single guest that took a chance. I don't have a million followers on YouTube kind of thing, but they took a chance. They spent some time with me, and that was amazing. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to everybody that was on that show, and I'm I'm trying to work it to make you proud and to continue the tradition for season 3, but do it in a more spectacular way, maybe even from the boat, from all of these places abroad. So just trying to up the game, but I very much want to say thank you to everybody that was on, and to my family, my friends. Man, it's just exciting. I don't feel like I'm about to turn 41. Definitely don't. I feel very young at heart. I think that has something to do with the salt air and the fact that I have been able to make choices in my life that have led to a bunch of hardships, but also led to a bunch of really unique and exciting opportunities. And just like you, Chris, I thrive on being curious and excited. I feel like that's what keeps people young, and I'm just trying to do that every day. So yeah, and I'm thankful for you. I really am grateful for you for giving me this platform and this opportunity to kind of express what's on my heart. So thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. That was let me ask you real quick. The wedding. Did you go to the wedding last year?
Yeah.
So tell me a little more about that. Was that in New York, or did you have to travel? Was that down? How did you? Was the
No,
family there? Your
it
mom and
was
dad were there.
it was a cool story actually. So the wedding itself was happening up on the like southern shore of Lake Erie near I don't know if you're familiar with Put-in Bay, uh, but it's kind of near Sandusky where Cedar Point and the big amusement park
Oh,
is
okay.
and stuff. So there's a beautiful lighthouse, and it was getting a little late in the year, so it was getting a little bit colder. We planned the whole thing out. I mean, months of planning. It was going to be at this lighthouse, and we choreographed where everybody was going to sit and stand and how it was going to work and everything. And uh, the day that the day,
Hmm.
right? We show up at the lighthouse, and not only is it absolutely horrendous weather. I mean, it's not raining, but it is freezing cold and it's probably blowing like 20, 25 knots sustained.
Wow.
So it's just absolutely it's you can't even hear people when they're talking because the wind that carries their voice away. But in the exact spot that we were having this wedding, the ceremony, there was another wedding happening. So, and when we kind of got closer, we were looking at the wedding party, and they all looked miserable. You know, they all are just like trying to force it. So we had to make this decision because the whole family is like showing up. We had to make this decision on what we were going to do. We ended up taking the entire wedding party to where we were going to hold the reception. It was in this winery, and it turns out that they have this amazing wine cellar that's lit, and it's just got these stone archways and these big casks of wine everywhere. It was actually a beautiful spot, and we convinced them to let us go down there, and both families set up the entire wedding, like the chairs and the altar and everything. We all pitched in, right? Even grandma's like in there, like moving chairs around and stuff. And we set the whole thing up in like 45 minutes. We had the ceremony right there in this wine cellar, this beautifully lit wine cellar. And it couldn't have, and then had the reception one floor above, and it couldn't have been more perfect. So it was just, it was quite the adventure. It's just that got to adapt, trim the sails and move in another direction.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, that flexibility in the moment, right? Like we have
Yeah.
choices here. We could just be miserable and bunker down, or what's the options?
Yeah. It's like
What
adapt or die.
exactly? Yeah, and then again, because you guys adapted, you've got this wonderful story, had a wonderful experience, and when you were explaining, I could see that cellar, what that looked like, and how again that what a unique, unforgettable moment that happened because of the weather.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the fact that, that everybody kind of went along with it, which just gives credence to, um, how great both families are. Yeah, everybody got along. There wasn't like one aunt that was like, "No, this sucks," this is horrible, just bringing everybody down. Everybody got along. Everybody recognized the situation. They all pitched in. It's just moments like that. You say, man, I love this family. I'm grateful to just be a part of it. So, yeah.
So so let me ask you this: you were in Key West for most of the pandemic. How were you with your mom or your dad? Did you guys do video calls, or how did you stay connected with them?
Zoom. Yeah. Lots of Zoom.
Zoom.
Yep. Yeah. We did family Zoom calls every Sunday night
Oh,
for like, I don't know, a couple months at least, right at the beginning, just to make sure everybody was okay and kind of like just, yeah, just hang out together. It was a little weird at first. I mean, nobody, like, I was used to Zoom because that
right.
was a lot of the medium and stuff that I was working with. But my family wasn't so much. And so there was a little bit of a learning curve, but once we got it, yeah, that's how we were hanging out. I was in Key West, my sister was in Nashville, and both my parents were up in Ohio. So, yeah.
Nice. I'm in Kentucky, so I'm going to be going to Nashville next week to see the Rolling Stones.
Nice. Awesome, man. I had, speaking of gratitude, like this motorcycle trip that I did, I couch surfed the entire way. Not sure if you're familiar with that whole concept, but I stayed with strangers, right?
Yeah.
And I spent a night in Louisville, Kentucky, and the guy that I stayed with, I showed up at like noon, and he was about to go to work, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm so glad that you got here early. I've been waiting for you. Let me show you in." I moved all of my stuff in, and then he was of Indian descent, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, the way that I like to just kind of get to know people is have this very intricate tea ceremony. And so I'd never done anything like that. It was like essentially, it wasn't a Japanese tea ceremony, but it was like a
Mm-hmm.
very rigorous. We sat down cross-legged. He was very methodical, and we enjoyed this tea together and had like an hour conversation over tea in the middle of his living room, and it was just the coolest way to start off the relationship. So that was in Louisville, man. So I have fond memories of Kentucky.
That's amazing, man. So were you here? Was that like 3 months ago? Or are you talking? When was your
That
when
was
was that?
No, that was last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, last year, right before like the whole pandemic thing. I was doing this really big motorcycle trip on a vintage BMW. I packed up all of my stuff on there, and I was riding. I wanted to do a year all the way around the country, and I made it from New York all the way down to Florida. Uh, but on the way, yeah, that's where I hit. So I went through Ohio and Kentucky and Tennessee and North Carolina and all that stuff. Yeah.
So that reminds me one of the guests I had this last year. His name's Thor, and he's the first. He's been traveling to every country in the world over the last 7 years. Right, you can't take a plane, and he had I think 9 countries left when the pandemic hit, and he's been in Hong Kong for the last year and a half trying to finish his journey.
No way.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. So he can't take a plane. So he's
Ships,
trains and ships and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I bet you would love talking to him because you're also, you guys have journey mentality. But yeah, he was great though, because I was talking with him. He was like, obviously he gets stressed about things, but then he recommended the book. What is the book called? It's geez, I can't even remember the name of the book.
Pressure's on, Chris. Pressure's on.
It's about Shackleton's exploration into endurance. Yeah. He recommends he's like you read that and you get some real perspective. He's like, I'm stuck in Hong Kong. We have everything. It's like I got running water. We have food.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, go ahead and read that book and you'll feel like everything's. I did. I read the book and I was like, yeah, these people. That's real problem. Everything's perspective, right? Like that's a real problem. Just
Exactly.
remind myself, I don't have real problems. I've never had real problems.
Yeah. Well, but by that mentality, we honestly, we live in like the most comfortable age that we possibly can, and half the time I feel like we invent problems just to be able to solve them at this point. But that book and Shackleton and everything, the incredible part about that whole thing, and because you read it, like just the journey to get all of those men saved, but the fact that no one died in that entire experience, that's insane. And they actually, from what I hear, I don't know much about it, but Shackleton's like family, granddaughters, I believe, took a lot of his teachings, his journals, his ideas, things like that, interviews that he had done, and they turned it into an executive leadership, like sort of program. So using the same principles that he used to lead everybody through this incredibly hard couple of years to get rescued from Antarctica. And now applying that to leading a team in a business setting, which I thought was a pretty interesting kind of overlap there.
Yeah, that's. But I know we only got a minute left here. I was like, I think about when I start thinking about problems, it's the same thing. It's like the lives that you and I live, like kings couldn't even fathom a couple hundred years ago, right? Couldn't even fathom. We're living the fantasy of the people, the wealthiest, most pampered people a couple hundred years, and that's just our everyday when we wake up. If we're waking up and we have running water that won't kill us and, food, plentiful food, how the fantasy, just go, I try to remind myself, not every time, but if I'm going to the grocery store, I'm like, and there's a line, right? What if they don't have this and that? It's like, wow, right? Freaking wow, right? Like, I mean, just anything, right? We can get anything at any time. Everything's, if they don't have it, there's a specialty store that has it, right? They'll get it on the street. And on top of that, I have a car, I can get there. Oh, I have time to do it. And I have money to buy the food, right? Like there's so much of abundance. But again, it's like, because all my life I've never have to worry about those things, I have to remind myself that this is I should be grateful for it.
Yeah.
Because it's not a given for most of the world. So.
Well, I'll tell you, living and working on the sea and the oceans and doing these trips, it's a great reminder too. Like, it really is, because everything's just a little bit more difficult when you're out in like an open setting like this, and everything from water to just this internet connection. Like I had to figure all of this stuff out, stuff that that I would have typically taken for granted if I was on land in a house somewhere, it really does. It puts things in perspective, just like you said. So who knows? One of these days, man, come to what will be Key West, and we'll do some sailing and put some stuff in perspective.
That sounds beautiful, man. I think that's a great way to go out. And just want to say, happy birthday. I appreciate your time today and sharing some stories with me, and your gratitude for your friends and your family and the adventure, and even the obstacles and the way to inside of that adventure. I think it's a beautiful way to live, and being flexible and appreciating all that comes up and then getting through it, like you said. Yeah,
agreed. Yeah, and you're welcome. And man, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. So thank you, Chris. And sending you lots of love and gratitude, everybody that's listening from the boat, from Albatross.
Thanks, Josh. We hang on 1 second while I exit here, and we can say bye. So I'm Josh and Chris. Saying again, it's a beautiful day. Even if it's not your birthday, there's reasons to appreciate the people in your life. Hopefully this will inspire you maybe on your birthday to just do something like this. Just give that outreach to people in your life, because they are truly the gifts that make the day so special. So I'm Chris and Josh. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we are out.